Hello and welcome to Eva's House of Spirit. I'm Eva, and today I'm going to try and talk about the subject of mental health and magic. Recently I posted a video where I kind of just said hello and gave a little quick update, and I welcomed viewer suggestions for future videos. And in a comment to that video, ChaserOx5 said the following: not to go too deep, but I think a cool video topic would be mental health and magic, and where you think the two realms blur as a chaos magic practitioner. I suffer from mild unwanted thought disorder, so it can be tough distinguishing and silencing my brain for meditation and stuff. I know my views on the issue, but would love to hear you chime in. So, I'm going to try to address ChaserOx5's questions, and I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm not a mental health professional, so take what I'm saying obviously with a grain of salt. All I can do is answer these questions as best as I can, drawing upon my own knowledge and experience and feelings on the subject. So I'm going to try and address these questions. I have some notes with me to try to keep my thoughts sort of together. This is a very broad topic too, and it's not something that can be answered, I think, in a real cut and dry kind of way. The first thing I'd like to say is that many magical practitioners see the mind as a powerful tool of transformation. Not just in terms of one's overall state of being, but also in terms of one's ability to manifest desires or not. Many people find such things as focus, mindset, or potential for psychological triggering, be it in a positive or negative way, to have a lot to do with the effectiveness or lack thereof of one's magical pursuits. So, in essence, the question comes in to play: are you, to what degree are you able to focus on your magical work? Where is your sort of headspace when you're approaching your work? Is there anything that is psychologically triggering you positively or negatively, and will that have an effect on your work? These questions do come up, and I think they are factors that will color the manifestation, or or your ability to manifest what you are looking to manifest or not. What I mean by this is, okay, take focus. Focus is of primary importance, because if you cannot focus your attention on a given task, you're going to find it very difficult to really, I think, sort of really pour your will into a desired transformational pursuit in terms of magic. Same thing goes with mindset. If you are unable to put yourself into a mindset that is, productive in regard to the kind of magic that you're seeking to create, you're going to probably not have the kind of results that you are looking for. And finally, it is important to be aware, I think, of psychological triggers. We all have them, be they positive or negative, because they can affect the results of our work. At least I have found. Psychological triggers, what they are in essence, they are some sort of stimuli that can trigger us to behave or act in certain ways. We tend to develop psychological triggers as a result of experiences that we have had that are usually pretty profound in our pasts, or sometimes triggers can be developed just by way of associations that we form between things and feelings, or things and actions, or things and thoughts. That's the best way that I can explain what triggers, are and how they are developed. So those should be considered. We all have them to some degree, in some way. Some are positive, some are negative. Examples: maybe the smell of cookies can trigger you to sort of negative feelings or actions because, let's say as a kid you had a really abusive mom and she was always baking cookies, and so now when you smell cookies you associate that with sort of just negative experiences. It's something like that. Or even on the positive side, let's say you associate the smell of roses or a certain word with love because everyone who you've ever felt loved by has always brought you roses, or has always said a particular word, or often said a particular word. Things like that can really trigger you toward actions or thoughts or feelings, and those, I think we should be aware of as much as we can be of what our personal psychological triggers are, because they can affect our magic, for good or ill, depending what is the nature of the trigger. Now, with these things considered, it is therefore logical that many magical practitioners choose to study psychology, explore their own psyches, and or seek out professional counseling with the goal in mind of seeking to better understand themselves and others, and also to try to cultivate and maintain a greater state of mental health, perhaps the greatest state of mental health that they are able of attaining. It would make logical sense because for those that feel that the mind is such a powerful tool, you can kind of look at it in the sense of the following analogy. The mind is like a machine. Well, if you're running this machine and you're not maintaining it, you're not looking after it, you're not keeping it, well-oiled and in good working order, there's a great potential that it's not going to run at its greatest possible capacity, and it may break down or may run into a lot of problems because of the lack of maintenance going on, So I guess you could kind of look at the mind in that respect. If you're not sort of maintaining as much of a state of mental health as you are able to, you can run into problems, potentially. At least that's how I sort of look at it. That's how I feel about it. But then, okay, that aside, what happens in cases where someone already has a diagnosed mental health issue, even as they are pursuing a magical path? This can be a tricky situation, as no two people are alike, and depending on the nature and severity of the issue a person in such a case may or may not have, they may or may not, encounter, sort of difficulties in their magical practice. It really depends on the individual. It really depends on the nature and severity of whatever their issue happens to be. It depends. I can't give you like a cut and dry, like, well, this is how you would handle it, because there's just such a wide array of issues that a person may or may have been diagnosed with in this case. So, in the case of people that have been diagnosed, there is also the question of how they might tell a legitimate spiritual experience from an experience that results from a mental health issue. I think the defining factor in determining what is going on can be found if we question whether or not an experience is leading the person who experienced it to harmful behaviors or potentially harmful behaviors toward the self and or others. Spiritual experiences, as far as I know, and assuming they're positive in nature, usually tend to lead to greater well-being for the self and or others. So if an experience, a spiritual experience, or an experience that one is questioning whether it is spiritual in nature or not, if it is supposed to be, or if a person takes it to be positive, I think you can sort of tell the difference depending upon where it leads you. Let's say Jesus comes down and talks to me, or any deity for that matter, and it's like such a profound experience, and I'm just like, wow. But let's say that it begins to occupy my mind a great deal. Let's say that I stop eating, I stop sleeping, I start beating the crap out of people that don't see things as I do, and doing, let's say I start doing all kind of like radical things. That's probably not a legitimate spiritual experience of a positive nature, because it is not leading to my own well-being. I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping, it's affecting my health, and I am there then also harming others. Why would Jesus or some deity come down and lead me to do such things? It just doesn't really make a lot of logical sense. But I will say, I think it's hard for people in certain cases to be able to step back and objectively assess a situation in this way, to be like, well, where is it leading me? Does this make sense? Is it harmful? Is it not? Some people, depending on the nature of what's going on, for some, if thinking is clouded due to the mental health issue, it might not be so easy to be able to discern what is healthy, what is not, or even they may not even recognize if they are harming themselves or someone else while they're in that state of being. That's about, now I was talking about positive experiences. Well, what about negative spiritual experiences? What about encounters or experiences with negative energies or entities? I think in such cases, it would be wise to be psychologically analyzed by professionals in seeking to rule out if there is an underlying issue or if an existing issue has progressed in severity. I advise this because I'm a person that tries to approach things in a how can I put it? I don't want to say scientific way. I don't want to say logical way, but I try to debunk what can be debunked first. I try to find explanations first. And then let's say I had an encounter with some demon or something and it's popping up in my house all the time. Well, before I, or it's what I perceive to be a demon. Let's say before I jump to the conclusion that this is a demon in my house, oh my God, I need to go seek out, this and that, I need to do this and this and this. Maybe first I should just go and be evaluated and just be sure that I am healthy, because if it is in fact a demon in my house, then I will probably pass the psychological, test. I will probably be, assessed as healthy. Of course, just saying, you might not want to be like, hey, so there's a demon in my, you know what I mean? Like, you may not want to share that necessarily with the professional while they're assessing you. You may just want to let them assess you as an individual in terms of how, just in terms of how you function, you yourself. Never mind your experience. But that's just my thought. I mean, some people may say, well, it's important to share that information, but then again, some professionals may jump the gun and say, well, if you've seen something, you're automatically experiencing a psychological break of some kind. So it depends. But if overall they assess you and you are deemed to be healthy, then yeah, maybe that was a negative spiritual experience of some kind or encounter of some kind. But again, it's hard to say where the lines of mental health and and spirituality kind of are defined, because there's not really a clear definition. It's kind of a little tricky. It's not so cut and dry. We all have degrees, varying degrees of psychological issues of one sort or another. Some are very mild and some are quite severe. So that should, I think, be considered as well. So this is a really deep topic, and up to this point, I think what I have said generally is probably my initial take on things. I'm saying initial because I'm sure there will be comments on this video, and I will be returning to this topic or addressing the comments that you all share with me, your thoughts, your feelings, etc. But now I'm going to go on to the other part of Chaser Ox 5's comment. I'm going to try to address where Chaser Ox 5 said it can be tough distinguishing and silencing my brain for, it can be tough silencing my brain for meditation and stuff. Okay, I'm going to try to address this part. A lot of people view meditation as sitting in silence with an empty mind, just totally zenned out. Sitting in lotus position. Meditation doesn't have to be like that. There are so many different ways to meditate. For people that find it hard to quiet their mind, there are other ways. Some people use the practice of yoga, for example, or maybe a practice like Tai Chi as forms of meditation. In this case, instead of emptying your mind, you are focusing on the present moment, on the activity at hand. And that is then how you would sort of unplug from the daily grind and sort of allow yourself to just be, with yourself in the present. And, I think too, a lot of people think that meditation, it's all about, again, emptying the mind. But I think if you embrace thoughts as they come and go, allow them to come and go naturally, allow the flow of your thoughts to naturally sort of progress where they will go. Let them just float in and float out. Maybe you'll find that thoughts, trains of thought that come to you can lead to very profound sort of insights. So many things can be methods of meditation in this way, where you are just being present, where you are unplugging from, the mundane, where you are just being with your thoughts in that moment, where you are sort of being with yourself and letting yourself be led toward, I guess, insight, or toward, some higher state of well-being. Some people create art, some people craft, some people journal, some people walk out in nature. Some people, you can do so many things. Some people What else? Hey, even technically, meeting with a friend over coffee can be seen as a form of meditation, you know? It's whatever it is that lets you really be present. Sometimes I think that can be sometimes more profound, if anything, or more uplifting or more enriching than just sitting there with an empty head, you know, or trying to really still yourself when that may not come easily to you. I think the trick is finding where you can be focused in the now, finding an activity, whatever it happens to be, where you can really focus in the now. And don't be afraid of thoughts that come and go. It's okay to let them naturally, you know, progress and ebb and flow and take you to just sort of wherever they take you, you know, in a sense of insight, creativity, you know, maybe they'll lead to an epiphany. Maybe, you know, if you just allow your thoughts to kind of, you know, you'll sort of realize like, hey, I never thought of this or that way, you know. Um, so yeah, open your mind, I think, to the possibilities of, you know, using some other activity as, you know, a sort of meditation. For some people, this may sound really silly, but for some people, washing the dishes can be an awesome way to meditate because you're just really focused on that moment. It's a sort of like quiet activity, you know, you're washing your dishes, you know, there's the sound of the water. Your thoughts may kind of flow wherever they go, but you're really being present. You know, you're really, really being present, and you're not trying, you know, to empty your head. You're just kind of letting yourself be receptive to your thoughts or to your state of being in that moment. You know, and it is a great way to unplug from, you know, stresses and, you know, craziness just in life in general that we all encounter. So, and honestly, I think doing things that are productive, such as cleaning or even work of any kind, or even you know, pursuing whatever you do as a career, sometimes that, believe it or not, you know, being of service to others can in a sense be a kind of meditation as well, because you have to be very present what you're doing in that moment, although that can be a little stressful for some depending what your job is. So that kind of takes it in a whole nother direction, but what I'm trying to say is maybe don't view meditation in the traditionally expected sense. Open yourself to other possibilities, other activities. You're not limited in what you can do to really find that sense of center, that sense of self, that presence in the now, you know. So I hope that I have answered your questions, at least up to this point, as well as I could. If any of you have thoughts, feelings, suggestions, if you feel that I have left anything out of my discussion here, or if you think that there's any point that I should probably elaborate on, or if you disagree with me, anything at all, I'd like to hear from you. I figure maybe we can continue this dialogue, or I welcome VRs too. You know, like I think this is such a broad, deep subject that there are just so many aspects to this that I think it is something that we should talk about, because I think for a lot of people, you know, especially those in particular who happen to have mental health issues, you know, I'm sure they do come up against the question of mental health and magic, and like where are they, you know, in that whole mix, you know, like how can they find their flow, you know, how can they function in, you know, having a mental issue and pursuing magic. You know, it's not so easy, and there are, I think, a lot of people that judge and, oh well, you shouldn't be doing magic, or, you know, oh well, you're just crazy. You know, there's people that throw that out there, and it's like, you know, maybe instead of jumping the gun, maybe we should really stop and take a moment and consider and talk about, you know, what's really going on. And it's really not such a cut and dry thing. But I hope that I have done your questions some service, Chaser Ox 5. So with that said, I think I'm going to end this video here. Have an awesome day. Blessed be and Ashe. And until next time, bye-bye for now.